Hi guys, Lori here. I'm back to do my March reading wrap up. I will be honest, this month it did not go the way I thought it was going to go in any stretch of the imagination. We are all dealing with the horrible coronavirus in New York. My life has changed on a split of a hat. I'm now working from home as a theater teacher. We really can't leave our houses. It's just a scary time. Um, and I had no idea going into March that was what it was going to wind up. If you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a theater teacher. I put up a show every single year. I really think my show is pretty much done for. I have no idea if we're even going to go back into the building this year, which is so concerning and so scary. I hope you guys are staying safe. The only somewhat positive thing is that I've got to tackle a lot of books on my TBR just because I've been home a lot and they were much bigger books. So right now at the time of this filming, which is March 29th, I've read or listened to 14 books. I hope to finish 2 more books before the end of the month, but I'm going to see how long this video is and I might wind up splitting it into 2 parts. But I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you guys are practicing social distancing. I know it's not easy. I totally get it. But if you have found my channel, I hope you like to read. I hope this video brings a little bit of comfort to your life. Hopefully I'm able to give you a few reading recommendations and we will get through this. I also make weekly reading vlogs that I share with you guys, and I hope that that content just gives you something to watch as background noise, which is something that I'm always looking for. But let's get into the books that I was able to tackle this month. I do run a book club on Facebook, and I will link it below. It's called the Time Warp YA Book Club. This month, we went up completing our Obsidio reread from Amy Kaufman and Jake Kristoff, and that was one of the first books that I read this month. This book was a reread for me that I wound up listening to via audio over the course of like 2 days. I really, really love these audiobooks. I know I said like a long time ago that I would really recommend that you guys read these books physically, and I still do recommend that, but I think the audiobooks adds another level to it because you have a full cast of characters, and I think that it's such an engaging experience. So that's the first book that I wound up finishing in the month, and I really liked how it wrapped up. I love going back and seeing those characters again. I thought that it was a very, very solid conclusion, to be very honest. Like, I really enjoyed it. I loved how it focused on those 2 characters, but then it also tied back to the other characters. And I really love them as a writing partnership, and I'm really excited to see what they wind up writing next in the future. I would love to see if we go back to this world, but it's a very solid science fiction series that I also wound up really, really enjoying. So that's my thought on that. The second Time Warp YA book club I haven't completed yet. That is Blood Heir by Amelia Wang Zhao, and I haven't completed it yet. This is going to be my next read after I finish reading the book I'm currently reading, but I'll talk about that later. But then the next book that I wound up completing was Nightfall, which is the 6th book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series by Shannon Messenger. I had to find it. But this is another book that I want to picking up. This is another middle grade read, and it follows Hanks and Maisie, and they become fast friends when their lives kind of intersect in an unexpected way. And they wind up going on a mini adventure to try to save this dog from a fate that they don't think is very, very nice. Hank also has autism, and he's kind of dealing with stuff. Maisie and him live very, very different life, but it's a very, very sweet friendship story. I like the title, We Could Be Heroes. I think it was very, very sweet. I wound up giving this book 3 stars. I read it really, really quickly. It wasn't a loud novel. It really had no fantastical elements. It just was kind of a sweet contemporary novel, and I love books that have dogs in them. So I wound up giving this read 3 stars. And I did forget to talk about the first book that I read, so I'm going to share that now. The first book that I did wind up completing in March was 7 Deadly Shallows by Courtney Alameda and Vania A. Mattia. This was a book that I got from New York City Comic Con this past year. And this is a Japanese-inspired, it's a contemporary retelling of the retelling of Seven Samurai. Basically follows this girl named Kira, and her and her family run a temple. She basically is caught in this unexpected war when an ancient demon god unleashes chaos upon her family. Kira's talent means it's to stop the demons in its tracks before it can wreak more havoc. Just to go on this adventure to basically team up with other gods to save this god from taking over the world. I love the setting of this book. I love the romance in this book. It was a very, very quiet romance. I love how this book had like a quest element to it, and it reminded me a lot of season 3 of Teen Wolf. I said that before, but I really, really wound up enjoying it. Definitely a very, very solid standalone. I would love to see what they write again in the future, but it was definitely more of a quest novel. It reminded me a little bit of Shadow of the Fox series by Julie Kagawa. But I really, really wound up enjoying it. And I wound up giving this book 4 stars. And then the next book that I wound up reading was a doozy. This is a book that has been on my TBR for about 3 years. And I am so happy to say that I have finally completed reading Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This has been one of the books that has been massively on my TBR for about, when did this book come out? I don't even remember. It's been on my TBR since, let's see, is it going to tell me when it came out? Probably not. Let's see, when did this book was published in 2017, so it is like 2020 now. But I mostly, before this reading vlog or this year, I've mostly been just listening to these audiobooks, and it just takes me so long. So as you guys will see in my reading vlog that I'm going to post in April, I really decided to just tackle this as a physical read and an audiobook, and I read it through so much faster. I love this book. I thought this book was great. I thought the ending was shocking and heartbreaking. I won't spoil it here. I do spoil it in my reading vlog, but boy, was it a good read, and I wound up giving it 4.5 stars. I think that this probably wasn't my favorite in the series, but book 3 definitely was. I thought it was a great way to feature the Blackthorn families, but also make allowances for the series, the characters that we have adored in the past, and I really wound up liking it. I definitely have some new favorite characters in this series, and I was definitely excited to see where the series went in the future. But I definitely really, really wound up enjoying this book, like, thoroughly. And I do have a whole reading vlog about it coming up, so I won't spoil too much here, but just know that this was a very Shadowhunter heavy month, as you guys will see later. Was a YA contemporary book that I've heard amazing things about from nearly everyone that I follow on BookTube, like Super Space Chick, Alexa Loves Books. I don't think Haley and Bookline read it, but like Emma from Heather from Bookables read it. So I was expecting good things, and I was not like disappointed at all. This was a book that I gave 5 stars to. Basically follows Pepper and Jack, and they both work in their family's business. Emma's mom, Pepper's mom, is a big corporation leader of this burger place, and Jack's family winds up running a little deli in New York City. And basically, Jack's family accuses Pepper family of stealing their secret recipe, and these two characters wind up getting into a Twitter war with each other. And then they wind up battling with each other through this. It was really, 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 really well done. There was also an element of the You Got Mail situation that happened. There was a twin element in this book that I really, really liked. I just really found it to be so fun, and I loved how it was a dual point story. I love contemporary books where we get the male and female perspective. I think it just rounds out the story really, really well. I love that it was set in New York City, which is where I currently work and where I spend a lot of time. I just thought it was so good, and I wound up giving it 5 stars. I'll definitely read more by Emma Lord in the future. The reason I don't have a physical copy of this book is I gave it to a coworker before we left to leave, because I know that I thought she might like it. So, but that's why I don't have it anymore, because I gave it to her. But I wound up really liking it. If you're looking for kind of a super fun, just a quick read that has You Got Mail elements, I would definitely recommend you check out Tweet Cute. So the next book I'm going to chat about is A Mission by Julie Buxton. This doesn't actually come out till May, but I wound up getting an early arc of it from Penguin. I have read every book that Julie Buxton has wrote this year, except for her previous book, 11 Other Punchlines. But this is basically a rip from the Headlines novel, basically inspired by the college admission scandal. It basically follows Chloe, whose mom is like a B-list celebrity, I'll say, and she basically bribes or cheats her daughter's way into USC. And it kind of deals with the aftermath. It's told in the present, where she's kind of dealing with the lead up to a trial, and then the past, like leading Chloe to get to the trial, like lead to the moment that her mother is basically arrested. I love the structure. I thought the concept of this book was so cool. And I really did like Chloe as a character. I just felt like I missed a little bit of like the side characters and the world building, and it wasn't as such a the cast of characters didn't capture me as much as Chloe did. I loved Chloe. I just wish there was a few more people that were in this novel other than her family. I wish that she just had something else. There was a very prominent romance in one half of the book, but not in the other half of the book. So if you're looking for a real romance read, I would not. This is not a book I would recommend because the romance didn't really do anything for me, unfortunately. But I wound up giving this read 3 stars, and I definitely will check out her other books or books by her in the future. I really liked how she tackled this. I thought it was a really interesting take of Chloe as herself. I liked Chloe as a character, and I never really thought about the kids in this situation, like how they may feel, and I thought that Chloe was a good representation of that. So I wound up giving this read 3 stars, or 3.5 stars, I'll say. Not 4 stars, but 3.5 stars. And then the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kimmerer. This is the companion or the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely. This book does have 3 perspectives. It has Gray's perspectives, Harper's perspectives, and Laya Marie's perspective. And I loved being in Gray's head. I love Laya Marie's. Harper's character was a little bit interesting in this book. It took the story in a totally different direction, a direction that I was not expecting. There's a massive spoiler at the end of A Curse So Dark and Lonely that definitely turned this book on its head for me, and it really took Gray in a totally different direction. But I really wound up enjoying it. I wound up giving this book like 4.5 stars. It was a solid read. I love the dynamics between Gray and Laya Marie. I love both their characters. They were so interesting. I also loved Harper. And I really liked Ren's development as a character, even though you don't see him in this book a lot, like you don't get his point of view. I'm so curious to see what's going to happen next. And I wound up loving this book. I cannot wait for the 3rd book in this series because the end of this book really surprised me. So I'm really curious to see where this series goes next, and definitely a solid read. If you liked A Curse So Dark and Lonely, I would recommend this because Gray is like my new favorite boyfriend in books. I really, really loved him. And Lila Marie was a great character. I loved her as a character. She was so different, so unique. A lot of stuff happened at the end that was like surprising to me as like a reader, and I'm really excited for the direct sequel. So those are all the books that I'm going to talk about in this video. Make sure you check out my part 2 wrap up, which will be up later in the week. I just want to finish a couple of the reads that I'm in the middle of reading. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope that I gave you guys a couple of reading recommendations for you guys to tackle when you guys are in quarantine. Some of my biggest recommendations is just tackle series that you really have been putting off. That was basically what I went into, and I think some of my favorite reads of this month was definitely Lord of Shadows, definitely A Heart So Fierce and Broken, definitely Keeper of the Lost Cities Nightfall, and definitely Tweet Cute. And I'll talk about the other books that I wound up reading in my reading wrap-up part 2. But I hope you guys are staying safe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Laura here. I'm back. I just decided to make this one video because I had a little bit of issue with my editing, so I decided to just make it all one video. So sorry for the confusion. I hope you guys enjoy this extra long March wrap-up, and I hope you guys are staying safe. Hi guys, Laurie here. I'm here to do the second part of my March reading wrap-up. If you have not seen the first part of my March reading wrap-up, recommend you go and watch that. Overall, I wound up reading about 14 books. I am filming this video in 2 parts because it is like March 29th, and I still do hope to finish a couple of books before the end of the month. This coronavirus has really like basically put the entire world at a standstill, like work-wise and everything-wise. The only thing that's been slightly good for is my reading because I've been tackling a lot of older books on my TBR just because they're a lot bigger. But let's dive into it. So the first book I'm going to chat about in this video is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This came out in February, and this was a murder mystery thriller. Basically follows Pip, and I think this book takes place in England. I'm pretty sure it does. But it basically follows this girl, and she's determined to solve the mystery of who killed Andy Bell. She's determined to solve this mystery, and she makes it her capstone project, and she winds up basically kind of uncovering the mystery of what happened to this girl and what happened to the person, or what happened to her, because the person that they think killed her is now dead as well. So she's kind of goes down this deep rabbit hole of trying to find out what happened to Andy Bell. And it's told through linear storytelling, and then it's told through like case files. And you know what? It's an unputdownable thriller, as addictive and twisty as Serial and Making a Murderer. I have a deep love of disappearances, and basically Andy Bell's body was never found. There was a lot of blood, but her body was never found. So she's basically a missing person, which is something that I'm always intrigued by. I really wound up liking this book. I love the characters. I love the dynamics. There was hints of romance that I really liked. I love the structure of this book. Wound up giving this book 4.5 stars. I thought it was such a well-crafted read, and it's going to be a series, which I'm really excited about. I don't know when book 2 is coming out, but for sure I'm going to be there. I really wound up enjoying this book. This was one of the first books I read during quarantine, and I flew through it. Read it in like 2 days, and it was such a quick read. I really loved Pip as a character. I loved how she went about investigating. I loved her family. I just thought it was so good, and I wound up giving this book 4.5 stars. The next book that I wound up reading was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I'm going to be a little bit honest, and that's Meet Me at Midnight by Jessica Pennington. I have loved Jessica Pennington's other books, Love Song and Other Lies, and I read When Summer Ends. This book just was not what I wanted. It basically follows these two characters, Sydney and Asher, and their moms are best friends. Their mom went to college together, so they wind up always living next door to each other, and they wind up having massive prank wars all year long. This book is also set in the same town as where Summer Ends took place. But there wasn't really any like big tiebacks to that series, which made me a little bit sad because I really did like those characters. But when something happens and they wind up getting evicted from their house, they wind up their two houses. They wind up taking it upon themselves to basically prank the person that like made them move, which is all on the back. But the problem I had with this book is that the back flap really ruined the book for me, because that element didn't happen until so far into the book, and I didn't feel a lot of connection between the characters. It definitely was a hate to love romance, which I normally like. It didn't capture my attention. I normally love books where it's both characters' point of views, but this book does not capture my attention. I only wound up giving this book 3 stars. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I will still definitely read more by Jessica Pennington in the future. This is probably my least favorite book of the month. I'll be a little bit honest, but I still did like it. I just didn't love it. And then the next book that I wound up picking up was a graphic novel, and that is Gotham High by Melissa De La Cruz. This is from the DC imprint, and it basically follows Bruce Wayne, Joker, and Catwoman, Selena Kyle. And it basically follows them as they go through Gotham High. There's a murder, there's a disappearance involved. And I went in this book a little bit hesitant because I don't always love Melissa De La Cruz's writing style. And I had a moment in this book where I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this. But I actually wound up really, really liking it. I love the art style in this, which is from Thomas Patel. I love the art style. I really like the characters towards the end. I like how this book ends. It was shocking. I will admit that I didn't expect how that book ended. It was just a really, really fun read, and I really loved seeing the characters. I loved what she did with Selena Kyle's character, and I was really liked it. I'll definitely read more by the imprints in the future because they really have been impressing me. And then the big doozy of a book that I finished towards the end of the month was finally Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This book is... Let's see. There is a short story in here too. So I would say this book's about 900 pages. I adored this book. I read most of it. I listened to some of it. James Marsters is a great narrator. I fell for this book so hard. I really, really thought that this book was the perfect mix between all the series that I loved. Infernal Devices, the Mortal Instruments series, and the Infernal Devices series. I definitely have some new favorite characters. I love how we finally got to see some characters from the Mortal Instruments series that we haven't seen in a while. There was a lot that this book dealt with about the aftermath of Lord of Shadows. If you want to see my full spoiler thoughts, I do have a reading vlog coming up early in April. which I loved. I love filming that reading. Like, it was really, really fun. And I love the aftermath of this book. The one thing that Cassie Clare does so well that I think other authors need to, like, just take a note of is she really does have such a wide cast of characters, but she's also able to, like, really give them all their just desserts and really make sure that they all have a storyline. I think my favorite characters in this series is definitely Kit and Ty, by far. I also really like Christina, Mark, and Kieran. I thought that their relationship was super interesting. And I thought the end of this book was super surprising. I just also liked how the physical book also had colored pictures, like non like just pictures. I loved how we had some elements in this book that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the Wicked Power series because I think it set it up really good. And then you just have to wait for like 5 years for that series to continue. But I wound up loving it. So this one was definitely one of my favorite reads of the month because I thought it was such a big accomplishment for me to finally complete it. And then the last book that I finished listening to at the current time is Devouring Gray by Christina Lynn Herman. This was actually a reread for me because I wanted to dive into Deccan Ohms of April, and I loved rereading this book. I thought it was great. For those that don't know, I'm working from home, and I'm basically teaching online, so I'm having kids hand me work as I'm teaching, but we're just doing it like through Google Classroom. But I needed to find something that I could listen to that would keep me occupied, but also that I wouldn't get lost in the details. So I was trying to find a book series that I really wanted to reread so that I would be ready. So I actually have a couple this week that I'm going to tackle as well for early April. But I wound up listening to this and loved it. I'm so excited to dive back into Deck of Ohms when it comes out in April. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on The Devouring Gray. Right now, I am reading a couple of books. I am reading Keeper of the Lost Cities Flashback by Sana Messenger. Right now, I'm on page 502. I really hope to tackle this by the end of today. That would be a dream for me. And I also would love to finish reading, start and finish Blood Heir by the end of March. So these are the books that I have on my TBR. I also am in the middle of listening to, or going to start Scarlet by Marissa Meyer tomorrow. So I'm going to come back probably like Wednesday night and film the end of this video, but that is what I have read so far in March, and when I come see you at the end of March, I will let you guys know if I was able to complete these 2 books and make any progress on my listening. Talk to you guys in a bit. Bye. Hi guys, Lori here. I'm back to actually wrap up this reading vlog. Late last night, I did wind up finishing reading Flashback, which is the 7th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series. I will admit this was not my favorite book in the series, but I still think the series is definitely worth a read. It definitely took some twists in this book that I was not expecting. I didn't love the pacing in this book, I'll be a little bit honest. I felt like it was a very long book, but not a lot happened. I really equate this book to book 6 of Harry Potter in pacing, but I think we did get a lot about the world. I thought the ending was even like a little bit rushed for a book that was like so slow throughout the whole thing. I thought that a lot of the character elements were really interesting. The ending really wasn't surprising, but I'm surprised to see what's going to happen in book 8, which I will hopefully get to read soon. So this is the end of my March reading wrap up. I'm heading into April, tomorrow, but I'm going to probably start reading tonight. I just hope that you guys are staying safe and that you guys are getting some reading done, and I hope that you guys like what you guys are reading. Let me know in the comments what are some books that you have been reading that have helped you through this quarantine period, and what else have you been up to, and I'll talk to you guys for my April reading wrap up at the end of April. Bye guys!